Like, what's the purpose of learning Nezikin? So why does a guy go to law school? A guy goes to law school often to find out how to twist the law for his client's benefit. You know, the lawyer is not going to ask his client, are you innocent, are you guilty? The lawyer has a job, and his job is to make sure that his client is found to be innocent. It doesn't matter if the guy was guilty or not. And it doesn't matter if he deserves to win or not. Whoever's got the better lawyer, and they can use all different types of tactics. So a person might make a mistake and think that a similar thing applies when it comes to learning Bava Kamma. It comes to learning, like, how am I going to jipper the system to my benefit? And this idea that a person can be exempt midine odom from human law, but chai b'dinei shemaim, is a big eye opener, because it explains to us that it's got nothing to do with if you manage to jip the system or not. You know, it's the expression out of the frying pan into the fire. So if a guy manages to do things in such a way that the Beis Din is not going to punish him, he's actually in a much worse position, because then he's open to be dealt with by Shamayim. And dealing with Shamayim, there's nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. You know, with the Beis Din, if the Beis Din paskin on him and the Beis Din punish him, then he can turn to Shamayim and he can say, listen, I've already handled that. I've already been punished for that. But if he has to deal with it in Shamayim, then it's going to be a lot worse. And this principle of the Shamayim looking out for things is very, very critical, because it also helps us understand that then what is the role of the Beis Din? Now, if Shamayim can sort the guy out, what's the role of Beis Din? So there's a fascinating Rabbeinu Yoina in Pirkei Avos. In Pirkei Avos, right in the beginning of Pirkei Avos, it says, "Hevu mesunim bedin." You must be very deliberate in judgment. So this is an instruction to the Dayanim to be very, very careful when they're examining all the cases, and not to rush it. And over there, the Rabbeinu Yoina brings a fascinating point. The Rabbeinu Yoina says you should know that the instituting justice is a critical part. It's how we learn to understand Hashem Kivayachol. And the Gemara in Megillah, the Gemara in Megillah says, everywhere you find HaKadosh Baruch Hu's greatness, you find his humility. And the way the Gemara proves it, it proves it from Torah, from Navi, and from Ksuvim. So you have a pasuk that talks about Hashem's greatness, and then you have a pasuk speaking about Hashem executing justice on behalf of the oppressed, on behalf of the widow, and behalf of the orphan. So we see that when we execute justice, not vigilante, but when we make sure that justice is served, we go through the whole process of justice, we have our Beis Din, what we're actually doing is we're partnering with Hashem. And in such a way, as it were, we are understanding a little bit better what Hashem's Ratzon is. Because that's what a human being is there for. A human being, the role of a human being is to try and understand what Ratzon Hashem is. That's why we're given such a brain. When we try and compare ourselves to any other creatures, right? So you have all these guys, right? The guys are going and they're building their muscles. They're going and they're working out in the gym. And they're becoming strong, right? They're becoming strong. The reality is that the orangutan is much stronger than them. Right? I remember once hearing about a guy. He was a super martial arts expert. And they arranged for this guy to fight a bear. Did you tell me the story, Dama? I don't know.
Yes, Rabbi Cohen. What I said is that he broke in. It was in Asia, and it wasn't a bear. It was a gorilla, and he was some second dan or a higher level than a black dan martial artist. So he thought at night he'd sneak in and see if he could take on his opponent, and they found him dead and mangled the next day. But what they realized is he threw in 2 punches. This gorilla lifted him and threw him like a rag, like this. There was nothing left of him after 5 seconds. And
yeah, so that one I didn't hear. The one I heard was a guy, they set him up to fight a bear in America, but it was a trained bear.
Oh,
It was a trained bear. And so the bear knew what to do. But this guy thought he was smart, and he gave the bear a hard clap to the degree that it irritated the bear. And he was very lucky that they managed to restrain the bear before he was no longer.
Okay.
So we have, Usain Bolt. So when we cannot run faster than the animals, we cannot fly, we cannot swim better than, we can't do anything that animals do. They can all do it better than us. And when you scale things up, even the insects, outclass people. The only thing that a human being has got is his seichel.
Yeah.
In fact, the Maharal explains in the Sefer about Chanukah, because he says that in the vision of Daniel, the various kingdoms, the 4 kingdoms that are going to oppress Klal Yisrael, the 4 kingdoms all present themselves as animals. In his vision, they're all animals. But what's very interesting is that Nebuchadnezzar also has visions of these 4 kingdoms, and in his vision, they present themselves as people.
Sure.
Visions of different type of people. So explains the Maharal that Nebuchadnezzar is a guy, and therefore the other nations are the same as him. And therefore, as he is a human being, they also present themselves in a vision of a human being. But he says as follows, that just like the advantage of a human being over an animal is the seichel. If you're going to handle the animals on their own terms, you're dead. But if you use your seichel, you can catch the animals, and you can have dominion over the animals. You can rule over the animals. So he says, so too Klal Yisrael has got a different seichel. So Klal Yisrael has got a seichel eloki. Klal Yisrael has got a connection to Torah, and that is what distinguishes us from the nations of the world. It explains the Maharal that when we do that, when we work on our terms, in other words, when we connect it to Torah, then we are like an animal like a human being in respect of the animals, that we're able to do what we need to do, and we're not controlled by them. If we try and work in the Goyim's playing field, as it were, then we're like that guy who's climbing into the gorilla's cage. We're going to be totally outclassed, because that's not where we're at. Okay. So the key point is that when we're going to do justice, we have to understand what Ratzon Hashem is, and then we have to apply it. The other important thing that I want to bring out of here is that we have to know, so you have a guy who's going to do something, and we say that's going to make big things up in Shemayim. He's going to be facing dinim in Shemayim. So that tells you a very important point, that in heaven, they're interested in what you're doing. They're interested in what you're doing. What you do is going to affect what happens in the spiritual worlds. And this is a principle that the Reb Chaim Volozhiner expresses it very much in Nefesh HaChaim. He says, well, there's the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. It says, at the beginning of the second parak in Pirkei Avos, it says, Dama lamala mimcho. Know what is above mimcho, from you. So people generally translate it as Dama lamala mimcho, know what's above you. He reads it a little bit differently. He says, Dama lamala, you should know that what's above mimcho, it comes from you. We have to know that when a yid can be anywhere in the world, and he's busy learning Torah, and he's doing something good, he's building worlds, spiritual worlds. And unfortunately, the opposite as well. So you were speaking about, Chas v'chalila, a guy going to a mixed beach. Guy goes to a mixed beach, and he's going to be looking and thinking things that he shouldn't. He mustn't make the mistake and say, look, but don't touch. Right? He should know that he's causing immense destruction in the spiritual worlds, because all our actions are spiritually relevant. We make a mistake. We make a mistake and we think that the world that we see is where it's all at. Okay, I mean, even the rest of the world is getting past that with their metaverse, right? With the metaverse, so the metaverse is, yeah, there's a lot more to the world. I don't even understand. We've been living in a metaverse for thousands of years. We understand that what you see is just a small fraction of the story. Right? And the Yid lives in this far bigger universe in which he understands the ramifications of what he's doing. He understands that he goes through life being careful that he doesn't want to cause damage to anybody, irrespective of if he's going to be found out or caught or not. Because there's B'dinei Shamayim. He wants to be clear. He wants to be clear on all of those things. So I said, on the one hand, it can be a very intimidating thought, but on the other hand, it can be an incredibly empowering thought. Because again, we live in a world, and especially with COVID and everything, you say there's over 7.8 billion people in the world, and a person might think, who is he and what is he and what difference does he make in the world? And this is telling us, no. You should understand every Yid. Again, a Yid can be in the ends of the earth. Right? The Pasuk says, Kol mokim she'azker shmi, right? Wherever Hashem says, wherever you mention my name, and mentioning Hashem's name is learning Torah, saying a bracha, learning Torah. Avo elechu verachticha, says Hashem, I will come to you and I will bless you. Hashem doesn't have any network issues. There's nowhere that's out of Hashem's range. Wherever a person is, Hashem is there. Hashem is aware of what he's doing, and a person he can get not reward. He can understand that what he's doing is significant. What he's doing is significant. I'll give you just one point to end off with. We say after eating a shakol, after eating, you say Barein Nefashos Rabbos. Right? So what does it mean, Barein Nefashos Rabbos? Hashem created Barein Nefashos Rabbos. He created many souls, v'chesroinan, and their deficiencies. Explains the Tosfos that there's certain things that are absolutely necessary. We need bread. Okay, we need water. Those are necessities. But then it says, Al kol mashe barosa, on everything that you created, lachayos b'hem nefesh chai, to help people stay alive. It explains the Tosfos. This is all the extras. This is the apple. This is the steak. All the extras that make it pleasant. But a person has to think, when I'm having this piece of bread, when I'm having this water, when I'm having this apple, whatever it is, Hashem created this whole world, and there's this whole supply chain to get this to me. Hashem is looking out for me. And Hashem is interested. I'm making a bracha, and that's what we're doing. When I make a bracha, you make a bracha, when each of us make a bracha, we're essentially making a declaration that Hashem sent this particular object, this particular foodstuff for me now to sustain me. And not only to sustain me, that I'm going to get pleasure out of it and I'm going to appreciate it. So everything we do, we've got to understand how important it is. So that's maybe just a little idea that we can understand, or the whole idea of Dinei Shamayim, Dinei Adam, and the Dinei Shamayim, and there's Dinei Shamayim, that we understand how everything we do is relevant. Okay, happy to take questions.
Rabbi Cohen, sorry guys, I don't want to preempt. Do you have a question? I just wanted to ask Rabbi Cohen a question, but I don't want to interrupt if you guys have a question first. Can I ask? Okay, Rabbi Cohen, just two things. I was thinking about what you said. The first thing of it is that, I don't know if you know which rabbi it was, where a student turned around and said, I see my Rav, he does a bracha and I do a bracha, what's the difference? And the person that was with this Talmud turned around and said, well, his Rebbe eats the apple in order to do a bracha, and he does a bracha in order to eat the apple. In other words, it's the same act, but you're living in a completely different universe of consciousness about a level of appreciation of taking the mundane and literally elevating it to the most holy level, instead of just getting a bracha out the way in order that you're not liable for divine theft, so to speak. and that in everything we do, there's a consciousness. In other words, in terms of earning a living, yes, the money's good and you have to pay bills, but to be in a profession where you're using your skills and resources to help an ecosystem of everybody getting what they need. And even when you have a cup of coffee, to realize that there are people that have been sustained by the thousands for the sugar and the milk and the logistics and the coffee. And that sort of appreciation immediately draws you to see the awe of Hashem, but it takes work. I don't know what you think of what I'm saying, what you think.
Anything worthwhile takes work. We must understand that worthwhile and a dopamine rush are two separate things.
Okay.
Right? It's easy to get dopamine. You can, watch a movie, you can play a video game. Doesn't mean it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
You'll also get the dopamine rush from doing something that's worthwhile. But it takes work. It takes effort. Nothing comes from nothing.
And generally, the harder it is, the more worthwhile it is. The higher the dopamine rush, the more of a clue it is that it's the easy route and not what should be done at that.
And you just got to take a look. What you got to take a look. You got to be growing. You got to be moving. That the part of a definition of a human being is that he's a mahalech. He's somebody who's moving.
Okay.
Right. You have to. So Baruch Hashem, you guys can look back over 6 prokim in Bava Kamma. That's a sign that you're moving. That's a sign that you're moving, and you've also got to see. And as you said, brachas is not it's not a switch. You can make a decision to work on brachas. I'll tell you a fascinating thing that I learned actually today. There's an excellent book on chinuch. There's an excellent book on chinuch called Spare the Child. But he brought a fascinating point over there. He brought the point of let's call it self-discipline. Right? What does a person need for self-discipline? And he pointed out something. When you think about it, it's obvious. He said self-discipline is part of the general category of discipline. Self-discipline is not something different to discipline. There's discipline where you have an authority figure, and they are imposing requirements on you. That's discipline. So you can have discipline in the army, for example, right? So the guy needs to listen to his commander and his commanding officer. There's an imposition on there, right? And over there, the consequences are very easy, because if he doesn't do it, he's going to get put in jail. He's going to get court-martialed. There's going to be immediate consequence. That's a discipline, and it's been imposed from outside. And then you have it in a school environment, in a work environment. You have all different types of discipline. Self-discipline is when I figure out what it is that I want to do, and now I have to keep to the plan. Knowing the plan and keeping to the plan are two different things.
Yeah.
You need discipline to keep to the plan. So even though you're an independent operator and you can make your own decisions, it's no guarantee that you're going to have the discipline to keep to the plan you made yourself.
Yeah.
So one of the things a person's got to do, if they notice that that's a challenging thing, is they got to try and use various techniques to help their own discipline. It can be with davening in the morning or with the learning or anything. And that's one of the things you can do with the chavrusa, with the chabura. You realize that sometimes I'm going to call on different techniques to help me institute my own discipline. But when you have your own discipline, so you're doing what needs to be done because it needs to be done. Right, you figured it out that it's the right thing. But once you know it's the right thing, then you do what needs to be done because it needs to be done. And you slowly become a more disciplined individual, and then you reap the benefits thereof.
Wow. Guys, any questions? I mean, I'm blown away. Any questions on your side?
I'm blown away as well. So,
Kevin, Arthur, any questions? For Rabbi Cohen, now's your opportunity.
You're such an
Yarrow.
intimidating personality, Damon. That's the problem.
Nah.
Yeah, he's a big, he's a
Pussycat.
balabosa, what can I say?
Not at all.
Yeah, no, he's a sweet guy. Rav,
Rob,
you were
did you-
talking about the difference between the Jews and the non-Jews, okay? Like, I'll give an example. When one Jew dies, the whole country mourns. Everybody mourns. You know, like everybody just gets so upset about it. But, you know, in another country, one person dies, they don't care. It's like a different level.
So there's a very famous story about that. There was a blood libel case in the last century, and the prosecutor, I don't know if it was the prosecutor or the judge, he brought a Gemara that it says Atem kruim Odom, that only Jews are called Odom and Goyim are not called Odom. So he says, what are we, animals? So he answered as follows. He said, listen, he says, we hear over here, again, I can't remember which country in Europe it was, this one Jew has been accused falsely, and Jews from all over the world, from England, from America, everybody, all over the world, Jews are mobilizing to try and help him. He said, what would happen if this person was a Russian or a German or something like that? He would be on his own. He says that Jews are called Odom because the whole nation is considered to be one entity.
Sure.
That's why it says the Jews are called Odom. Whereas by the Goyim, everybody's in it for themselves.
Sure.
And that's what you have to do. You have to know that even your learning is of benefit to all of Klal Yisrael. When you daven for the refuah shalema, it's not just for yourself or for the person that you know. It's a refuah shalema betoch shar cholei Yisrael, amongst all the other Jews who's sick. There has to be this big perspective. And as well, the Gemara says a person has to see himself that the whole world depends on him. Because there's certain things that happen as a result of the cumulative merit or demerit of the Jewish nation. So everybody's contribution makes all the difference.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you, Rabbi Cohen.
Okay, all right.
Gavin,
Yeah, can I ask a question,
Sure.
Gavin? It's slightly unrelated.
No,
What happens
Go ahead.
if I try daven every day and I don't always go to a minyan, but let's say you don't feel like it and you're not motivated and you just rush through it. Do you still get credit for it, for still doing it, even though you're not?
Yeah. So Reb Chaim Volozhin in Nefesh HaChaim says you should know that each mitzvah contains three components. There's an action, speech, and thought. So when you say in brochas, the action is forming the words with your lips. That's the action. The speech obviously is when you vocalize it so that you can hear it yourself. And then the thought is what you're thinking about. He says you have to understand that the top two, the speech and the thought, are extra. They're important, but if they're not there, you've still got it. So let's say a guy takes a lulav, as long on Sukkot, as long as he takes the lulav and he shakes it, even if he didn't say a brocha and even if he didn't have any intention, he's done the mitzvah of lulav, right? And he's a person who has at least verbalized, at least he has to say it with his lips. So this is a very important point. People are unaware. A brocha only counts if you move your lips and form the words. If you go, you say it in your head, you haven't done it. Brochas and davening only work when you form it with your lips. That's the action. Once you've done the action, then you've already ticked the box that you've done it. Right? You can obviously do it in much better ways, but the bare minimum in brochas and davening is that you should form the words with your lips.
I just realized something of that. When you daven and you actually form the words and you bring it out, you're bringing it from the spiritual world, which is you, into the physical world.
Right. So that's what you do. That's a ruach. So if you think about it, that whole process of speech uses your lungs, which are in your body. It passes through your larynx, which is the joining point. and then it comes out through your head, which is your identity and like the ruchnius part of you. So that's what you're doing. Okay,
Rob,
I'm going to have to leave guys because
Thank you.
You know, right. I'll ask you.
right.
next
No.
time.
Okay, if you've got a quick question.
One quick question for Gavin.
It's a very quick question. It's on the same vein as what the other guys have been talking about. I suffer from a thing called fibromyalgia. So I get a thing called fibro fog. It's like brain fog. So it doesn't happen every single day, but on the bad days, it does happen. So if it happens and I attend a shiur and I'm absolutely out of it and I don't know what's cutting. Well, I know what's cutting, but not fully. Is it still worth my while to attend or stay home?
It's definitely worth your while. It's definitely worth your while because the effort that you put into something, it also counts, right? When you put in effort to do something, even though it's difficult, you're showing that this is important. And that is a very important, that's a very important thing. You're showing this is relevant, this is important, this is significant. Right? So you might decide, you're not going to watch the game, but you're going to go to the shiur,
All right. So even if I'm only absorbed, listen, I never absorb less than about like, let's say 30, 40%. I still pick up at least, or even 50%, I probably pick up, even with the brain fog, but I don't pick up. I do miss a fair amount because I'm a bit out of it.
So to put it into perspective, right? So Elon Musk, whatever he has is not worth even one word of Torah. But everybody would be happy with 30 or 40% of what he's got, right?
Yeah.
And what he's got, everything that he has, everything, even if you're going to assume that he could cash it, could not buy one word of Torah.
Okay, we'll end on that amazing note. Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.
That's a great note.
Colton.